There is a difference between a person's true divine spirit and the demon, aka ego, that shows up when they're triggered. Peace, chosen ones. Happy Owl Wisdom Wednesday. I hope you all are doing well. This is the Mystic Owl speaking, and today I want to talk about a person's true spirit, their true divine character, versus their mundane spirit, their demonic spirit, their egotistical spirit. And I made a conscious decision to stop arguing or going back and forth with people, or that I'm no longer talking to the person's spirit. Like, we are not having a spiritual interaction, even if it's just a regular conversation, and their ego shows up or comes into play. And it's not about judging or judgment upon them, it's about protection of myself. It's about being aware, and it's about being grounded and staying grounded in my own frequency, which is why I'm so vigilant on if I'm actually talking to this person's true character, or if I'm talking to this person's ego based off their life experiences, based off how good or bad of a day they had that day, based off if they're moving off of social media rhetoric. And these types of changes can happen in everyday conversations. It doesn't matter what it's about, it doesn't matter who it's with, it doesn't matter what time it is, what day it is, the occasion. It just doesn't matter, because it can go from a regular conversation to an argument or disagreement real quick. And at that point, you're not talking to that person's soul anymore. You're not interacting with their spirit anymore. You are talking to their ego, basically, or what some people, including myself, call the demon. It's other things that I call demons as well, like parasites that humans unfortunately are also full of. But the ego is the biggest demon that manifests like in an instant, because it could take a while for like a parasitic infection to really take over a person. But the ego is so fragile when it's unhealed and when it's hurt. And if you intentionally trigger someone's ego, you never know how that person is going to react to that. And this is why you have to know when you're talking to the person, or when you're talking to their spirit, or when you're talking to their ego, because it's so dangerous out here right now. It really could be the difference between life and death. Seriously. And at this point in my journey, I just simply don't argue with people. Like, for the most part, I've never actually really argued with people, but it's just some people who want to be in your life, but they also don't want to respect you, your boundaries, your way of life. And they'll constantly attempt to force like some type of back and forth with you, some type of argument. And most of the time, I always ignore them. But sometimes people do need to be addressed and put in their place, because we all have a place, that like our own lane. I like to stay in my lane. I don't like to get into other people's lanes. But that's not how everybody operates here. And the reason why I don't like to argue or do that whole back and forth is not because I don't have an opinion, or because I'm afraid of this person, or because I'm weak. No, it has nothing to do with that. It's because I realized and experienced you never know who or what is presenting itself in that moment. You don't know if this person is presenting with their divine spirit, if they even have a divine spirit, or if this is just a complete ego demonic takeover. Like, you never know until it happens. And when someone is operating from their true spirit, their true divine presence, there will be a softness, there will be understanding, there will be kindness there. The energy will be as light as a feather. And what I'm explaining is so rare. And when it does happen, it usually happens when people are not really familiar with you. And once they become familiar with you, that's when a big shift usually starts to happen, because unfortunately, familiarity breeds contempt. So if you do have a disagreement with someone and y'all are not that familiar with each other, there still might be a kindness there, like a light energy there. But as soon as you become familiar with one another, you will see a different side, a darker side, and it has nothing to do with gender or race. This is a spiritual war. And if all it takes is time for a person to reveal their true colors, just wait because it'll happen. It'll happen one way or another. And that's when you'll know if you are in a disagreement, in an argument with a person's spirit, their kind spirit, or their demonic ego spirit. And when they are in that ego, low vibrational energy, they're not looking for a resolution. They're just looking for a win. They're looking to be right. And they're also looking to feed off of the conflict because the high tensions, high energy, high emotion, that's free energy for them. And who doesn't like free stuff? I learned that you can't have a spiritual conversation with a shadow, which is really the ego. You can have a spiritual conversation with a shadow that is not ready or refusing to step into the light. The light is wisdom, the light is information, the light is the truth. So if people are not ready to accept the truth or to hear the truth, and not just your own personal truth, just a universal truth, then that's not a person who you want to have a back and forth with anyway. Discernment is everything. We need discernment in everything that we do, everything that we haven't even done yet, everything we're preparing to do. We need wisdom and discernment, especially when you're trying to protect your peace. You're going through spiritual warfare, or you've already been through spiritual warfare. And when a person's ego or demon starts to flare up, their symptoms are so loud. Like they'll literally start to look different. They'll start to look different. Like their eyes might change, jaw might clench. What I noticed is like in a disagreement or a back and forth, the other person usually bring up something that happened in the past that has absolutely nothing to do with the topic at hand. That's the ego script. That's the ego talking. Now I know for a fact I'm not talking to your spiritual divine self. I'm talking to your egotistical self who still holds on to the past, who still holds on to hurt and pain, and you refuse to let it go when a person behaves like that. And the thing about it is, we have to let people behave how they want to behave. And this is why we move out of the way. But also, in moving out of the way, these people resent that we moved out of the way, even though they pushed us out of the way. This is why spiritual and physical protection is so important because the ego knows no bound. It'll do anything just to be right, just to get the last word, just to say, I told you so, just to shut you up, including permanently. I have to be so careful when dealing with our own ego, but the chosen ones who resonate with me, we've already dealt with our egos, or we're at least learning how to deal with our egos. And it's like a never ending process, it's never ending work because there's always going to be something we have to heal from and learn here as long as we're living. So for me personally, when I'm in a back and forth with people, or even when people say things to me that are mean, rude, nasty, disrespectful, things that I don't agree with, I like to walk away. I let them get the last word because it's just better for my peace and my energy. I don't need to satisfy my ego by getting the last word. I usually let people get the last word because they need it. They need it. And at that point, I'm not interested in like continuing any kind of personal relationships or things like that. I don't care if it's family. I just move on. I just go on about my day, go on about my way, and let them be satisfied with having the last word or being intentionally rude or disrespectful. It makes them feel better. And so I remove myself, I remove my energy, and I know that they sit back and wonder why I'm not around anymore or why I'm not interacting with them anymore. And it's because I'm going to protect my boundaries by any means necessary and my peace and my body. I actually don't look for other people to protect or even respect my boundaries. I look for me to protect and respect my boundaries. I expect people to disrespect my boundaries, to overstep my boundaries. I expect them to do that. But what I expect from myself is to uphold those boundaries and those standards that I've set within myself. Your only job is to remain the observer in all of this, in this entire place, with everyone, and keep your own frequency high. Because if you stay in an argument or back and forth with anyone about anything, even if it's about your boundaries or disrespect, you're basically just giving them permission to pull you down into that lower vibration, which is where they reside. And now you're both drowning. We have to pay attention to the moment a person leaves out of their heart space, their spiritual space, and into their mind and into their ego. Because now that's a danger zone for you. Because once they go to their ego, just let them be there. You can't force them out of their ego. You can't force them back into their spirit. All you can do is hold the space for your own truth and wait for that ego storm to pass. And once it passes, you get to decide whether you want to continue whatever relationship this is with this person, family, friends, coworkers, associates, whoever. And like I said, sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is just walk away. Let them have the last word, because that word is coming from their ego anyway. If you stay to the end, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to tune into next week's Our Wisdom Wednesday for more spiritual guidance and insight. And as always, speak life over yourself. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. Trust yourself and protect yourself. I love you, chosen ones. Peace.